Somewhere around our 50s, travel starts changing. It doesn't announce itself. Like there's no clear moment when you say, from today I will travel differently. It just happens quietly, almost subconsciously. One day you realize that the way you used to plan trips doesn't excite you in the same way anymore. It's no longer about ticking destinations off a list. It's no longer about saying, यूरोप हो गया, थाईलैंड कर लिया, दुबई तो बिजनेस ट्रिप में हो गया था. That phase had its own charm, its own energy, and its own purpose. But it belonged to a different chapter of life. At this stage, travel starts becoming more personal, more intentional, more inward looking. It starts asking quieter questions. Why am I going? Who am I going with? What do I want to feel when I come back? And those questions don't always have immediate answers. Sometimes they sit with you for a while before you even book the ticket. That's what I want to talk about today. The idea of becoming a second act traveler. Welcome back to another episode of What If You Live to Be 100. When we were younger, travel was mostly about escape. Escape from work pressures, escape from routine, escape from responsibility. You traveled when your leaves were approved, when deadlines allowed it, when the kids' exams were over, and when the budget somehow worked out. And if we're honest, much of the travel felt rushed. You land somewhere, quickly start seeing things, clicking photos, ticking off places, and before you even absorb where you are, it's time to return. Monday morning is already waiting, and somehow you come back more tired than when you left. That kind of travel had energy, but it rarely had rest. And somewhere after 50, something begins to shift. You're still busy, of course. Responsibilities don't disappear overnight. Work may continue, family obligations remain, and life still demands attention. But the way you value time starts changing. You begin to realize that comfort is not indulgence, it's necessity. That meaning matters more than momentum. That experiences matter more than volume. You no longer want to cover places. You want to experience them, to stay a little longer, to wake up without alarms, to return without feeling depleted. Let me give you a personal example. Last year, I went on a cruise to Alaska. Now, Alaska is not an easy destination. It's not glamorous in the conventional sense. It's cold, it's quiet, it's vast, in a way that almost forces you to slow down. And that trip stayed with me long after I returned. Not because of luxury or comfort, but because of what it made me feel. Standing on the deck early in the morning, watching glaciers slowly pass by, there was a sense of stillness that's very hard to find in everyday life. No phone notifications, no meetings to attend, no urgency pulling you in different directions, just silence and space to think. That kind of travel doesn't excite your adrenaline, it calms your nervous system. And after a certain age, that matters more than thrill or speed. Then there are trips that look very different on the surface but are just as meaningful. A trip to Thailand with friends, for example. No rigid plans, no packed itinerary, no constant checking of what's next. Just people who've known each other for decades, long lunches that stretch into evenings, conversations that move easily between the present and memories from 20 or 30 years ago. On trips like these, you realize that you're not really traveling to see the country. You're traveling to reconnect with friendships, with shared histories, with versions of yourself that don't always show up in daily life. And these trips don't require luxury planning or perfect logistics. They require intention, the intention to slow down, to listen, and to simply be present. Then there are journeys closer to home which often surprise us the most. Recently, I went to Bhuj, not as a tourist rushing through sites, but at a slower pace, eating local food, speaking to local people, understanding the history of the place and the resilience of its communities. You return from trips like these with fewer photographs, but deeper impressions. You don't remember exact landmarks as much as you remember conversations, emotions, and moments of quiet understanding. And this is something I truly believe. In your second act, travel doesn't need to be far, it needs to be meaningful. Now, if you're watching this and thinking, travel sounds wonderful, but life is busy, health is unpredictable, and something or the other always seems to come in the way, I understand that completely. That's why I'm not saying anything about extreme advice. I don't say travel constantly, quit responsibilities, or turn life upside down. I believe in something far more sustainable. Try traveling at least twice a year. One trip can be relaxed, familiar, and comfortable. Another can be slightly new, slightly outside your comfort zone. One can be with family, one can be with friends, or even alone. Because travel after 50 is not about distance, it's about breaking autopilot. It's about reminding yourself that life doesn't have to feel the same every day. We talk a lot about health at this age: gym routines, walking targets, diet plans, supplements. But travel is also health, mental health, emotional health, relationship health. When you change your surroundings, your body responds differently. Sleep improves, stress patterns soften, conversations deepen. Sometimes the best therapy isn't something you buy, it's simply a change of place. And yet, many people feel an unexpected sense of guilt about traveling at this stage of life. Is this the right age? Shouldn't I be saving more? What will people say? Here's a gentle reminder. If not now, then when? Your energy today is not guaranteed tomorrow. Your mobility today is not guaranteed forever. Travel doesn't mean being irresponsible. It means being intentional with your time while you still have the ability to enjoy it fully. And this brings me back to the core idea of this series. If you genuinely believe that you might live to be 100, then the years between 50 and 70 are not a waiting room. They are not a slowdown phase. They are a rediscovery phase. Travel in this phase of life becomes less about proving something to the world and more about experiencing life fully, consciously, and joyfully. So maybe start small. Plan that trip you've been postponing. Call those friends you keep saying someday to. Choose comfort without apology. Choose curiosity without fear. Because the second deck traveler doesn't chase places, that they let places shape them. And that, I think, is a beautiful way to live, especially if you're planning to live to 100. Thanks for being with me till the end. I'll see you in the next episode.